Hey guys, this is Squidlid. I'm gonna be doing Narcissu. Um, I think it's just a visual novel, and I'll be reading it to you. If it is actually an interactive one, then I guess we'll be playing. But this is my first playthrough of the game, so please be gentle. Um, I do not know if you want me to read it or you want to read it yourself. For this episode, I'll read it, and there are parts to it that the character does speak and I don't have to. But for the parts that you'd actually have to read, I'll be reading them to you. And if you don't want me to and you want to read them yourself, just tell me in the comments. And yeah, let's get this going. Hmm. Go with this one. We will have a voice.
眩しかった日のこと。そんな冬の日のこと。確かに幼い頃から丈夫な方じゃなかった。
But even so, I went to grade school normally. During summer vacation, I played until I was tanned very dark. June soon after entering middle school, the day after we ordered swimsuits for the swimming class that would start next month. That time was the first time I experienced being admitted into a hospital. Just a little before the first semester midterms, a day where the rain that started to fall felt awfully cold. In the midst of the pure white sky of the rainy season, in the beginning, everyone in the class came to visit me each day. And when I was discharged from the hospital during the weekends, they would come to my house to play. But that was just the beginning. Fall came, winter left, hospitalized, discharged, outpatient care, and then starting again with the hospitalization. Classmates who once called me friends, at some point became acquaintances, and then turned into strangers. With each turning of the season, it seemed that I was disappearing from their memories.
どうやらいい気がしないらしい。普通に生きている人にとって私の存在ってのは、だから消されたようだった。いくつもの季節を、白い梅雨空を。私の英語の教科書は1年生の中間テスト以降まっさらな状態だった。そこで私の時間も止まったらしい。
Page 7, Volume 24. Early Summer 2004, Protagonist. 8 years later, 2004, Early Summer, Protagonist. Summer. Flowing sweat. In the driver's license examination area, a large electronic bulletin board was installed. All at once the lights came on, and it was like everyone else there. I searched for my own number. Standing among the mostly lit light panel, I found my own examination number. Cut. Because it was just midday, the train car was quite empty. And in the empty car, I was on the way home from the examination center. In my left hand was a traffic regulation manual I had just received. In my shirt pocket was a brand new license. With this, I am also normally licensed there. I murmured somewhat seriously, but I didn't feel any particularly strong emotion. It was just people around me were going to the training center and had recommended that I at least get a driver's license. That night, when I reported to my parents that I had gotten my license, "Is that so?" was the short reply. As an experiment, I tried saying that I wanted to borrow the car, and just as shortly came a "you can't." It wasn't like I had wanted to drive the car, but the responses were exactly as I imagined. They were those sort of parents. The next day, upon waking up, my chest hurt, and so I was taken to the hospital. Normally, I had little to do with things involving sickness. That's why waiting in the initial waiting room felt extremely boring. Finally, just when I thought the examination was over, this time I went to take x-rays and blood tests. Was made to go. On top of that, for a long time, I was made to wait in boredom. Without noticing, I had finished reading 3 books of jump manga that was in the waiting room, and was reaching for a 4th. And just like that, I was made to do paperwork for being admitted into the hospital. The brand new driver's license that still lay in my shirt pocket. It looked like the time for its debut was way off. Protagonist, 2004 autumn. Around when those very noisy cicadas had stopped crying, as usual, I was in the hospital. Of course, it wasn't like I was always admitted in the hospital. I would be in and out. Last month, I had my first experience with surgery. After being discharged, I commuted 5 minutes for outpatient care by scouters. And even from then on, admitted, discharge, outpatient care gradually moved into being admitted again. I didn't know anything about PET or IRESSA, but I noted, though, the comings and goings that numbers of months have passed. In exchange with my decreasing appetite, the types of amount of drugs increased. Even I could see with my own eyes that my strength was declining. My legs felt a bit thin, but it's not your imagination. The needles on the scale would tell me. And yet, I was looking at myself somehow objectively, as if watching a stranger, like looking at a single scene on television. The sudden thing that happened to my body, my head, couldn't keep up with them. The feeling that what was happening was real, didn't arise. And so, even though it was supposed to be my own body, I could only watch myself from afar with cold eyes. Winter. Around when Christmas trees were disappearing from the streets. Perhaps it was due to it being the end of the year, but I was allowed to return home. In the end, it seemed to only be temporary, but even then, I was a bit happy. In a mix of rain and sleet, I returned home for the first time in a while. For some reason, everyone in the family was gathered. Even though my parents normally didn't speak much, while being a bit stiff, they smiled at me. The little sister who I always argued with made my favorite cream stew and fried shrimp. We sat next to each other in the katsu. They peeled mandarins for me. They were so excessively kind. Sorry. That was the impression it left. During this time, I had just a bit of realization. Still left in the pocket, the brand new license. The license without giving rise to any particular value might expire. While having stiff, unnatural smiles directed at me, calmly, vaguely, rather simply, I thought of that, as if thinking of someone else. Protagonist, January 2005. The new year came, and I returned again to the hospital. For some reason, on that day I didn't go to the 4th floor, but instead to a conference room I was made to go. There, with my father and a doctor, I heard many things. I was made to listen. It was that thing called notification, probably. They had an extremely indirect way of speaking, but in the end, it seemed like I was going to die. See, that was why I was the only one able to reply with that. I couldn't find other words from when I entered until I left the room. That was all I said. Accepting my answer, the doctor moved to the ballpoint pen to his hand. Most likely, it was the paperwork for a hospice. To the very end, he was very businesslike. My father was very much the same. Seemed such a simple thing. That was my honest impression. And then, between the day and the next, I changed from the 4th to the 7th floor, from a 6-patient room to a single. And also, the 7th floor itself was a bit different from the other floors. For one thing, the floor was sparkling, the ceilings were very much higher and much broader. Inside the rooms, it was extremely clean. The large windows seemed designed to let in lots of sunlight. However, the window only opened a tiny bit. When I tried measuring, it was slightly smaller than allowing your head to pass through. The other thing was, the color of the ID bracelet changed. Since the day I was admitted, a vinyl bracelet was always wrapped around my wrist. Upon it was my name and blood type. The color had changed from blue to white. High ceilings, vinyl bracelets, windows that could only open 15 centimeters. The day I transferred to the 7th floor, it was when the boring New Year programs were still being broadcast. The time I met her for the first time was also at the very beginning of the New Year.
Narcissus.
Narcissus.
冬7回。
And I think that's a good place to stop here for today. Leave a like, subscribe. I know this is my first video, and I'm a bit sick, so I probably didn't read very well. But I'll be making another one, and I'll probably post it up today or whenever. Well, whenever I post this video. But thank you for staying with me if you did, and see you next time.